me.
Hello, we are Geeks Assembled, and today Alex and Susan are joining me to discuss a 1984 Wes Craven movie. It's become a cult classic. It's A Nightmare on Elm Street, um, where we first meet that infamous Freddy Krueger. So I'll go straight over to these two guys for their opening thoughts on this movie. Over to you two.
Yeah, well, I mean, I heard about it as sort of a cult classic. I saw it on video first, and then I liked it, and then I saw, which is a little bit strange because I really don't like, even though I have it myself. I burned my arm like 8 years ago accidentally. The I heard about it. I know it was Wes Craven. My mother's Cuban, and she's always liked his movies, always. And I hadn't seen it. I heard a lot about it because I knew that they had like, I guess there's like what, 9 movies now, including the remake, which I saw. The makeup was good, but the rest of it was not as good. And then I also saw it with my family. My mother liked it except for the ending, but we'll get to that.
Mm-hmm.
So there has been what, 9? Well, no, there's been 8 official movies, one official remake, and then there was the Freddy Nightmares TV show, which was a little strange because part of it was imitating The Hitchhiker with the nudity. You know, back when cable was one of the few places you could see nudity right away, as opposed to now where you can go almost anywhere and see it. And the TV show was also different in the fact that in some episodes, he was just like a host, like the Crypt Keeper from Tales from the Crypt. Other ones, he actually participated. Some stories, he participated, 90%. Like they rewrote the story again. They showed more of his trial. They changed it in the movies as well. He was a child molester. He wasn't. He was a gardener and a child molester, et cetera, et cetera. They changed the story again in number 6. Then in number 7, they combined it. They combined both the real characters and the movie characters with Nancy Heather Langenkamp coming back and John Saxon. And except for Johnny Depp, they're all pretty much, well, except for Johnny Depp and Amanda Weiss as Tina, they're all pretty much in the special effects business now. And I mean, I've liked all of the movies except for the second one. The second one was really strange. But I did like Freddy's Nightmares. They did do too many episodes, I think, but there was like 10 that were really good. Another creepy one was when he was possessing a woman on a TV talk show. So that was kind of, playing around with the trope of is it real, is it not, and things like that, which is another reason why I like this movie. You'll like this movie. You can't tell what's real and what's fake. You can't tell what's the dream world and what is it. And then the wonderful scene where Freddy jumps through the door with the mirror, and tries to grab Nancy. And it was funny that was actually real. That was a one-shot, real, no CGI, no computer. And I think that was the other reason why the movie was so good. If it had been done in '94, I don't think it would have been as good. But that there was almost no CGI back then, even in '84. So it added to the realism, and there was no cell phones either. So, and I think if it had made it in '94, I think it would have been more, more like it would have been more strange. But again, they also have Wes Craven did Scream, and that has more cell phones in it. Even though the killer's a little different. But he has a weird face too. But of course, if you see those movies, every single movie has about 2 or 3 killers. And they've had women also in the Scream movies that were killers as well. So it's kind of
anybody could be behind the mask.
Sure.
They just have to be a certain height and certain, athleticity.
Right. And so, but
Freddy was the thing that was cool about Freddy was that it was one guy. I mean, he was just one guy with like like this ability to move through mind fuckery, getting inside people's heads in their dreams.
Well, of course, I mean that's another,
amazing.
that's another science fiction horror trope is, what's real, what isn't. Depending on how you dream and how vivid you dream, it could be,
Sorry, I'm not going to sleep. I was just trying to get something.
Extremely.
Don't fall asleep.
That's right. Yeah, don't. Yeah, we could always do the sing-song rhyme, but we don't want a copyright strike. Yeah. So I mean, I heard the commentary, which was interesting. Like the tub scene was different. The scene where Tina gets killed is different. That's sort of in a round room studio because they didn't have, the effects like they do now with CGI and 3D technology that all you have to do is, walk and they can move your body in 10 different ways. And I guess Amanda Weiss suffered a little bit of vertigo for that sequence.
Because she was
in the room and it was, topsy-turvy.
Because it was rolling.
Yeah, it was rolling. So, some things are sometimes watching the older movies is great because there's no CGI, there's no computer, there's no cell phone. So it's like, okay, let me research into that a little bit more. How did they do that?
Yeah.
Did they use animation? Did they use clay? Did they use 10,000 different angles? Did they speed up the film? Did they slow down the film? And even in this movie, you can actually, like my mother saw some of the tricks right away, even though she liked it. She didn't like the ending, but she loved like the Nancy confrontations and the fights between Nancy and Freddy. And she also knew that, John Saxon, now he's passed away too, that he's been in so many famous movies and so many B movies, almost as the same character. He has, he's done so many, like he was in the famous one with Bruce Lee and he was in Nightmare on Elm Street. So they came back 1, 3, and 7. They came back. And yeah, like I said, I don't like number 2, except for a few scenes. 3 was good. 4 was good. 5 was decent. But I also had more rap because this is the late 80s, where we're talking about 84, and rap had a very small following. And then back in 89 with the NWA, I'm not going to say what the N stand for, and rap came back. Rap was harder. Part of it was more commercial. Part of it was nastier and talking about the other urban problems, which they only talked about in 5 and 6, I believe.
But this one was like Halloween was like.
Yeah.
This one was set in a community that was believable.
Well, right.
For the white audience, this was perfectly believable.
Well, I mean, I'm sure even Lee will realize that in a way it's Americana, but in a way it's low budget, but also you have the typical Midwestern, type of thing.
But by making it really reasonable and believable, Wes was just asking you to come in, and then then everything would go horribly wrong for our characters.
Right, but that's the other issue when we've discussed this before. Of course, England has more of the video nasties than America does in most cases, except for maybe Videodrome and a couple other movies. But the debate that, was around, we can't show it because of the copyright issues of, video nasties. And if you watch it, does that mean you're going to do it? And, I know that Siskel and Ebert and Designing Women always acted like the women were totally weak. That's not true. Nancy isn't weak in this movie.
No, she's not.
So some of that
none of the women are weak in this movie.
But it's a stereotype. And I think
the only one who was definitely disempowered was the mother.
Well, yeah, but she was also drinking all the time too. So
that's what I mean. But that was the thing that disempowered her. Otherwise, she would have had her own autonomy.
Right.
So yeah.
No, but I mean, it was I even watched some of the Friday the 13th again, not to believe the stereotype, but that's a little different as well. But it is kind of fun to see the first. It's funny. Most of the, like 90% of the first movie of all these series, whether it's sci-fi, horror, comedies, it's usually really good. They're low budget. The first movie is usually pretty good.
Well, you like you want to say, Alex. It is, but it isn't.
Right.
Really,
Right, yeah.
really. There are lots of science fiction that the first one is just rubbish.
Well, Alien is pretty good, but that's the good example.
But I mean, like the in the real scheme of things, you just have to see that the reason that this was so catchy was because it was completely believable, and because you were drawn in by that believability, you were allowed to imagine what it's like to go to sleep and have all the reality around you fucking go wrong.
Well, like I said,
it was not a somewhat go wrong. It was a completely go wrong.
Well, again, it was the fact of, I've known people that don't like the series at all, never have, because as the movies go on, the kills get a little weirder. So it also depends.
Well, yeah,
on what trope you're willing to.
The first movie, the first and second movie of this franchise, as Susan said, more believable. As the franchise goes along, the kills come more fantastical, more more outlandish, more comedic. But
more comedic?
The way he kills people, it's more comedic the way he does things.
Oh, all right. I didn't know
he's got the famous one that Lee's probably thinking of, with that blonde girl that's smoking cigarettes, and she's watching Dick Cavett interview Zsa Zsa Gabor. And it comes through the top of the TV, and that's why people didn't like it. They liked it, but they didn't like it because as the movies go on, he has more one-liners. He's more like
just more puns.
Right. Yeah. There's more puns and quips, and
When it first with the original, this movie we're discussing now, it's more original. Freddy is not in it as much.
He's not funny.
No, that's what I mean. As the franchise goes along, he becomes the main character in the movies. The kids are second to him.
Oh, all right.
In this movie and the second movie, it's the kid stories.
Yeah. And the kids are funny, but they are funny only because they're so believable.
Yeah. It's just you can believe there's a street. To be honest, you've mostly got one as well. We have got an Elm Street in my city.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
it rings true with some.
So have you gone walking around and looking for people being chased about by someone with a green and red jumper on?
No.
And then of course, Lee, because we have to talk about Wes Craven because he invented this, and Scream. Scream is more of the 90s 2000 version of. Mm-hmm. It's a variation on the same theme. Ghostface has a very strange face too, and it technically could be anybody under it, and you do have the stabby. It's not the fingers, but it's a knife in most cases.
But the movie within the movie is called Stabby Once.
Right.
So,
with Tori Spelling and other people.
No.
But that's a little bit different in the genre, and also, it is kind of funny how Alien and what's the one Halloween? What is it? John Carpenter and then Nightmare on Elm Street. How those movies are so important because they're so gritty and low budget. And Scream 2, which is also, Wes Craven, Scream as well, where they sort of revitalized the genre. They brought it back. It was dying before.
It wasn't dying before. It just hadn't been developed yet. People like Carpenter and Craven and King, with his writing, but King, but Hitchcock, and
Well,
I mean there were some people doing
well,
things, and like these artists, these directors, they pulled from normal life, and then they put horror in there.
okay.
Mhm.
Well,
But they
I don't know too much. I'm trying to remember about the Hammer horror, but Hitchcock was from the 30s to the late 70s, the mid 70s. And yes, he did a couple of slasher flicks, but it was
Yeah.
different because he had to deal with more censorship. Now, Psycho was a slasher
Yes,
movie,
that's what I'm
and
saying.
there was what's the other one? Frenzy was a slasher movie,
Now anyway,
but it wasn't modern. It wasn't super modern. Plus, Hitchcock had to do it a different way because he was English, and they had different rules about what you could show and what you couldn't show. And also,
I just think that it was. I just think that
yeah.
that these were great directors,
No,
and
they are.
they
They are
were
great
they were
directors.
pulling on
Yeah.
reality, and then they were
Right.
putting horror in there.
Right.
But then the next step was for them to like sow that seed and see where it grew up, and it grew up into sort of Ghostface, uh, Freddy being funny. All the Scream movies do have a center of humor because they're all talking about the rules and stuff like that. They all have like that central theme. But there was rule. I mean, there was humor in all of these things. The thing that was different was John Carpenter started pulling away and doing less and less comedy. He never really, actually, he didn't start with comedy. So
Okay.
so Craven
but-
really was accessing a lot of humor.
Okay, but the issue was the only
Craven was like the Marvel universe, and
Oh, I'm sure he'd love that.
and
I'm sure he'd
John
love that.
Carpenter's like the
No.
DC universe.
No,
One's funny, one's very
no.
self-centered.
Okay, but no. But you saw the interviews yesterday, and the interviews yesterday, John Carpenter he is making fun of America, but he's doing it a different way than Craven is.
Okay, but it's not really fun. He's not really poking fun. He is.
Yeah, actually, you're supposed to because that's the point of a movie.
That wasn't
Most movies have to have a sense of humor, especially in a horror movie.
When we review our next movie today.
No. But what I'm saying is, I understand it looks different, but it's not because obviously they know each other, and obviously, what I'm trying to say is Hitchcock had to do it more intellectual, and he had to worry more about the British censorship than the American censorship, which was different.
Okay.
Plus,
unfortunately,
unfortunately, he died, so we would have never got. Plus, we don't know if he would have quit anyway. We didn't get to see him do a real honest. He got close to doing a slasher movie, but he couldn't do it like Jason or Michael or Freddy. He couldn't do that because it wasn't invented back then. It wasn't allowed back then.
Okay.
He couldn't do it.
Okay.
Now it was
Norman Bates is pretty damn close.
Right, but
DDQ.
but here's the thing. Right, Lee, you remember this? Not just Psycho and Frenzy. Frenzy was a little bit more stalkerish and 1 hour photo type of thing. Wasn't there the movie Rope where they were discussing at that dinner party? How would you kill somebody? How would you poison somebody? Now, technically, visually, that's not very interesting.
Okay.
But the way they discussed it, and remember, this is 1940s.
Okay, but that's something.
Okay, but he couldn't do a slasher, but he could
that's
go.
That's something that we haven't.
Okay, but we
haven't watched that yet.
I know, but Lee, you know what I'm saying, right?
But he hasn't. We haven't watched that one yet.
Okay, but you know what I'm saying.
Okay.
Is that Hitchcock couldn't do a slasher movie.
He's trying to pull
he got close to it, but he couldn't. It would have been interesting if Hitchcock had been.
Okay.
Let me finish the thought. If Hitchcock had been a little healthier, and if he could you let me finish?
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think, Lee? Do you think if Hitchcock could have done 5 more movies, not just Family Plot, and it kind of ends, where that had a little bit of.
Come on.
Could you let me? You're not letting me finish this sentence here.
Okay.
Family plot was a little bit of the mystique of hypnotism and all that. If Hitchcock could have done 3 more movies past that, and a lot of people didn't like Family Plot in 1976.
Okay.
But if he could have been healthy and done 5 more movies, do you think he would have finally tried to get into the modern era of all the camera tricks and the revolving room and stuff like that? Or do you think he would have stopped and said, I've already done my, 40 movies or whatever?
Well, I'll say my little piece on that, and then we'll get back to the movie we're talking about.
Okay.
Hitchcock, I don't think Hitchcock would have done, because Hitchcock was more about suspense, the camera work, not special effects. It was more of the the darkness of the film, the shadows and stuff like that. I don't think he would have done any of the, as you say, if he'd gone into the 80s. So he was more of the old school. That's my opinion.
Okay.
But
Okay. I don't have a. We didn't watch the one that you were mentioning, but let me just say this: without the humor, this Wes Craven guy would have been incredibly difficult to watch because of what is shown on screen. What is great about Wes Craven and about that is different from all the other directors that we've mentioned is that he does add the humor in. Is that the way that Johnny Depp's what's his name? Garrett, what's his name? Garrett.
Johnny Depp's character.
Yeah.
Glenn.
Sorry, God. Glenn gets he falls asleep. He's supposed to stay up. He's got all this equipment with him on the bed, and everything's tied to him, including his stereo. And it all goes. He gets sucked into the bed, and then everything else gets sucked down into the bed with him. And I mean, like that, you could tell that it was just. Had he stayed awake a little bit, maybe his bed wouldn't have eaten him. But anyway.
I mean, for Wes Craven to take the old idea of if you die in your sleep, you die in real life. I mean, it's an old wife's tale, isn't it? This to take that idea and to create this theme in this movie and to create the character of a brave move to create the character of Freddy Krueger as a child killer, because that was not often being done in movies. And then you find out that the parents took the law into their own hands and killed him. So the parents lying to all their children, to the kids in the movie. This is a dark movie.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. Wes was dipping his toes in this with a bit of comedy here, a bit of comedy there. But as I said, as the franchise goes along, the comedy becomes more up front in the movie instead of having this is more darker than.
Yeah, well, it definitely was that. It definitely was completely in the like painful to watch area because, I mean, like. The only thing the humor helped a little bit, and then also the other thing that helped a little bit was seeing him fashioning and manufacturing his gloves.
Oh, at the beginning, yeah.
The beginning.
Those gloves have been so iconic now, haven't they? In the Hollywood history. Those gloves, I don't know if they've been auctioned or anything like that. I don't know how much they've made, but so his sweatshirt, his hat.
Yeah,
you've got to the way the character was written, directed, but you've got to give a big thumbs up to Robert Englund.
For
fleshing that character out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he was originally in the original V, the one
Yeah.
about lizard aliens, and then
Was it Willie?
yeah, Willie, yep. And then he was also in a couple episodes of Knight Rider with the Hasselhoff, the original one, not the remix and not the redos. And he's a character actor. I think he's about 65 now. He's getting up there, and he probably won't be able to do a full movie anymore. The remake was good in the sense that they had another good character actor and the makeup was good, but the problem is everything else was terrible.
Terrible, yeah.
There was like I said, there's an Americana to all three of the slasher, Michael, Jason, and Freddy. But it's sort of weird because in some ways it's like a John Hughes universe in a way. I know a lot of people are sort of imitating his leaning Republican Midwestern type of thing, which you get through the father and the mother. But I love it when Heather, Langenkamp, who was only in like 4 other TV shows and movies, and she's now in special effects. With the great line, she shows her arm that it gotten scarred when she deals with Freddy. Feel better? You call this feeling better? She points to her arm. But even in the 7th movie, she comes back and they blend both reality and fantasy.
Oh, cool.
And then they're debating whether the 6-year-old who now knows Freddy is around, but during the movie, the 7th movie, he's watching the first movie. And it's very creepy in a way how he's like screaming and he's reacting. And, Heather's trying to, shut the TV off and say, this is a movie I did when I was in my 20s, it's not real. But then the 7th movie, they blend it together. Yeah. So it's like, it's not only real versus fantasy and dream, but it's like combining the 6 elements together. So it's like, because even Wes Craven is in the movie saying, you have to help me finish this last one.
What?
Of course, that's the other problem with.
Wow! So it went really movies. Meta.
Right. So.
Okay.
Right. So that's the problem with that movie, is the fact that they're blending both together. So it's not just like in this one where you don't know if it's real in a dream state or in a dream. They're taking, they use the real actors' names in the 7th one. So John is John Saxon, Heather is Heather, and Nancy. Robert is Robert and Freddie. It's not just for a minute. It's like they combine the two.
That's really together. Too meta. So that's pretty. Right. That's pretty.
Right, and then they admit that without the first movie, the studio probably would have gone under.
Well, without the first movie, Craven would have gone back to doing other things.
Right. I mean,
because that was this was his big push into the industry, and if it wouldn't have worked, he would have done something else.
Well, no, you're going to review another movie in a minute called The Hills Have Eyes, and there was a sequel to that one as well.
Mm-hmm.
And funny enough, I mentioned John Hughes, who did teen comedy. He really didn't do teen horror, but the family from The Hills Have Eyes make an appearance in Weird Science.
Yes, okay.
So it is kind of weird how you have all this, in jokes and kind of meta before
universe things.
Right. So the guy you see with the big head and
right. I know that.
Right.
You showed me that.
So Susan, you were right about the multiverse.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm saying, everything, that's true.
But I agree with Lee that as you go to the 4th movie, the 5th movie, even the 6th movie of the Freddy Krueger universe, it definitely becomes more cartoonish. Now, one account, it does matter because the guy he could be in a Scream movie. And he has the 90s crew cut and the neon colors and he loves comic books. And there was a kid in the 3rd movie that was almost playing Dungeons and Dragons. But even that was more realistic than in the 5th movie and the 6th movie where, the kills are a lot more cartoonish. And I remember seeing that in the movie theater and people going, oh, whereas if you see the other movies, they're more scared. Their attention is, they're not distracted by the kills. They're not going, oh, come on, that's too much. Or,
Oh,
you
okay.
know, whatever.
Yeah, but going back to the original movie though, it the the ending for this movie as well is takes you by surprise. You know there's something wrong. You know there's something going to happen, and then all of a sudden the car, you know, the smoke and the kids skipping. You think,
Yeah.
wow, and then the mother's dragged through the the window through the door,
Yeah.
Yep.
and then it's left like that. Um,
Yep.
I don't know if they were planned to do a sequel at that
Yeah.
time.
But they left so much hanging. Yeah, they surely.
Yeah,
And then-
the studio wanted a sequel.
And then they
Raymond
got
did not want a sequel.
yeah.
My mother loved the movie up until the ending. When the ending came, she's like, "That's just damn stupid." She's like, "That's it." She just said out loud, "That's just damn stupid." You know, she had loved the movie up until that point. Up until the point, she's like, "This is good. This is the Wes Craven I like." You know, stuff like that. When she saw that ending, she was getting mad. This is stupid.
So then when the sequel came, it was
Yeah.
different characters and
Yeah.
which for me personally, I do like the second Elm Street movie. It's got a lot of shall we say homoerotic stuff
Yeah,
in
the
this
second one
in
is-
that one.
And there's a lot more.
Good.
Yeah, there's a lot more butt scene.
Yeah, I don't.
Guy butt scene in that movie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
got to the but the original movie is where is the benchmark for Freddy. And I say I can only see Robert England playing him from, you know, I know that they've tried before after him, but Robert England's the only one for me who can play Freddy properly.
Well, hopefully they'll keep him on doing the voice, but unfortunately, like I said, he's getting in his 60s now. I know that the most movie insurance
No,
companies
it's-
now
they're-
don't want people that are.
That's not true. They're working with actors who are into their 80s and 90s.
Yeah, but are they doing jumping scenes and things
I don't
like
know.
that? Yeah. I know what you're trying to say, and I understand what you're trying to say, but I mean, all he needs is the voice. The voice he's got, you know,
That's-
perfect. The
That's
voice he
so
can,
true, though.
so
By the way, Robert England's 75.
what's that?
Robert England is 75.
Yeah, so that's getting up there. So I don't know. Did you see the TV series from the 90s when they did Freddy's Nightmares from the 80s to the?
I've seen a few of the episodes when it aired. But, I vaguely remember some of the stories.
Yeah, so that's the other thing I think that's good and bad about the Freddy Krueger universe is that it starts off really gritty and it has a basis in reality, which helps with the is it a dream state, is it a fugue state or not? And then by the third or fourth movie, they have sort of these what is it, 6 or 8 kids, and they all get killed off by the fifth movie. Then they brought in another woman named Alice, or a girl named Alice.
The kid?
Well, she was the new Nancy, who also had a special power. And then, well, no, actually, wait, they had 2 new girls, which is they did the weird switcheroo from 4 to 5. And then number 6, they brought in another woman, and it was revealed that she was related to Freddy, and then they rewrote the story again. And then, like I said, number 7, they did the very meta thing, and then by 8, it was the combo of Freddy versus Jason.
Right?
Yep, and that was a little weird because the deaths in there are not as cartoonish, but they are still. And then it is a little bit more rapey, unfortunately. And then it's weird because they're not really teenagers; they're in their 20s, so it gets a little closer to Scream, but it's not. And then I guess there was a comic book crossover between Freddy, Jason, and Ash from the Evil Dead, which there was in the first movie. If you watch
No, wait. It was you were saying that they were watching
Evil Dead,
Evil Dead
Right.
in the first movie.
right, in the first movie. Right?
That was so cool.
So it's sort of weird how they've done all these weird crossover, and it's too bad that the remake had good special effects and it had good makeup for the character actor, and he's a good character actor. But I was trying to watch the rest of the movie, and it's like this is just like super camera tricks, and they didn't make any sense, and they didn't add to the atmosphere, and it was a lot more jump cutty, and it's like, yeah. So he was
And
actually good in the remake. The Freddy character looked good, looked realistic for a burn victim, was creepy, but the rest of the characters I just
Is that in
couldn't
three?
relate
Did you
to.
say?
No, that's the remake. The
Oh, okay.
remake
All right.
is the one that was very.
Okay.
It was so weird that even I didn't want to see the ending, which is not a good idea for a horror movie unless you say that you're scared, which I
yeah,
was.
but
So,
the idea of in the dreams, anything sort of can happen,
right.
and in this movie, you can just walk through a doorway and you're somewhere else. So really well done. Like where she goes through the school corridor and she's in the boiler room, and or sh- or she's running up the stairs, her feet are sinking I mean, that's a great effect.
Yeah, that
Um,
was.
so, what put everything into a dream. You can just add anything there. What's fantastical.
Yeah.
Wes Craven did that in this. Yeah, for me, this one is one of his best movies. I know he did his earlier 70s movies were sort of shock value. This one, as Susan said, it's up there. This one, because if this wasn't a success, I don't know where Wes Craven would have gone from here.
Yeah.
Would he have gone back to making the sort of movies he was doing in the 70s, or would he have gone on to do what he did?
Well, I mean, my mother's a big fan of Wes Craven. She did like all the creepy, very low budget ones in the 70s, which was also more creepy because it was a little bit more Texas Chainsaw Massacre than, not exactly, but that sort of, you're with a very murderous type of family, with a very, almost like Carrie, the original Carrie, where you have, this mother that you love to hate because she's so, nasty and mean and insensitive. Like I said, I didn't want to see The Hills Have Eyes. I know it from the Weird Science movie, but my mother loves a lot of his movies. Not all of them were horror movies, but he even admitted in an interview, he's like, I went to a convention and somebody told me to my face, why are they all creepy horror movies? Can you do some nice movies? He finally did one with like Meryl Streep. I guess it was supposed to be like a music movie, and originally they wanted Madonna, and then they changed to Meryl Streep, and that did good.
Yeah, I kind of remember
It was
him saying something like that in a documentary that I saw.
Yeah, I mean, it was a little weird that they went to the Weinstein brothers, who
Oh
we
my
now know
God. Oh my God.
from that. But they sold off.
Was.
Yeah, in the '90s, they sold off. They sold off the properties, and it's not the Weinstein Company anymore.
Jeez, it's so hardcore.
Did you like the Scream movies? Have you seen the Scream movie? Because that's like, he's known for three famous things. He's known for the gritty '70s, Hills Have Eyes, Last House on the Left. Then he went into the '80s with Freddy Krueger and Deadly Friend. Did you ever see that movie, Deadly Friend, from '86? Even though that kind of had a weird ending as well, you kind of went, took you out of the movie. And then you have the '90s with Scream, because that's basically where he came back. And then he did like five more movies, and then he died in 2015. And between 1996 and 2015, he had sort of except for the first one, he had sort of a weird combination with the Scream movies. Some of them he directed, some of them he co-directed, etc. And then you also had Kevin Williamson, who's known for, the Dawson's Creek the other version of trying to talk like a teenager, even though he's, a gay male adult. But unfortunately, some people haven't liked his writing after like the third movie. But what did you think of the Scream? A lot of the Scream
I'm
movies
not.
I like.
I'm, I'm not. I'm not going to mention the Scream movie because we're reviewing it next week.
Okay. So
Great. Well, then Alex is going to be on another podcast.
You know that they're making a sixth one now. They're planning to make a sixth one.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So I don't know if you saw that, but of course that's more modern. That has more of the computers and cell phones that the Wes Craven movies before 1996.
Yes,
really didn't have.
Yep.
We're doing Scream '96 next week and The People Under the Stairs.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, the people on that's 86. That's 86.
Oh, that's 92.
What the people
90,
on the stairs?
92, 91, 92.
Is that 86 or 92?
It was 91.
Oh, all right. I apologize. It seems kind of 80s, but then I think that's why my mother likes Wes Craven too, because it's not totally modern. It's somewhat modern, but not completely.
Anyway, we'll talk about that next week then.
Anyway. Yeah, I mean, okay. I have some of those as well. Of course, that one is turning the horror movies on its head. They do have some scenes in here where they are making fun of horror movies. Everybody has a nightmare. Nancy's saying that if I should die before I wake. The fact that there is still a subversion of the final girl trope, that she's able to fight against Freddy and turn the house into an obstacle course. That's why that was
sort of like Home Alone for ghosts.
You beat me to it.
So, well, no,
that's where John Hughes got the idea from.
Oh, is that right?
Oh, really?
Well, see,
Home Alone was after this.
Yeah.
This was 84. Home Alone was what? 90.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you watch this scene. You watch the scene in Nightmare on Elm Street. It is just Home Alone. The scene with where he hits him in the face.
Yeah, with the sledgehammer.
Well, I mean, Joe Pesci is good, but he's not as creepy as Freddy Krueger.
That's right.
But anyway,
and the other thing that's really great about you didn't know that.
But of course, we're going off into movie trivia,
but that's real. But it's fun.
But of course, Joe Pesci got in trouble for one of his girlfriends trying to act like a slasher as well in real life.
But the important thing is
that's kind of
that Wes Craven inspired John Hughes, right?
Well,
a lot of inspiration from all these directors with what's been mentioned today. They've all inspired everybody else.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
As you've mentioned Hitchcock earlier, people was inspired by him. They had things in the movies, what he did in his movies, in his early movies. We had who was the others we've had?
Yeah, Spielberg has said Spielberg has said that if it wasn't for Hitchcock, he wouldn't have. To direct
but Spielberg didn't make horror movies ever.
Jaws.
No, wait a minute. Jaws.
Yeah.
And Poltergeist.
All right. Stand corrected.
So let's ask a question, because we're sort of film buffs here and video buffs here.
We're geeks assembled.
How do you think? Can you agree, or can you come up with a very quick summation of British versus American, because they do share the same language, not the same culture, but the same language. And of course, people are forgetting that there was the Twilight Zone and there was Tales from
you asked him a question. So let him answer it.
All right. So as I'm just admitting, and you're just admitting, Hitchcock did influence Spielberg. And Spielberg and Lucas worked together not only on Star Wars unofficially, but on Indiana Jones. How do you feel? Did British pop culture influence American pop culture? Or did it, and it definitely influenced the movies, because we just mentioned some names. And Star Wars did have British actors in it. Star Wars was filmed partially on British movie studios and things like that.
Right. I would say that British directors have influenced a lot of American directors, but going back to the 50s, even the 40s, with the American, as you've mentioned, Twilight Zone, things like that, that influenced a lot of British stuff. What was to follow in the 60s, 70s, because before then, the only sort of sci-fi stuff we had on British TV was, I would say, it was Quatermass. But as soon as you got Twilight Zone and Outer Limits and programs like that, that influenced a lot of people over here. And we got
like Sidney Newman and Verity Lambert.
yeah.
Like those guys. Those guys.
I wasn't going to mention that, Joe, but
Well, of course, we're going a little bit far afield, but some people say that.
I don't know, but people used to hide behind the sofa in watching that too.
Well, I mean, again, though,
there was an aspect of horror and body horror and that.
What it is, the influence, it works both ways. We go across to America, America comes across here. It's like the music, the British invasion of
exploded over here, just completely whacked out of most of America.
So that music influenced over there at that time. I mean, it happened again in the 80s, I think, the second British invasion. And then the America music came over here and did the same. So I think it's just a mishmash of all.
Yeah, I mean, again, the and then people are saying Bill and Ted is ripping off Doctor Who with the telephone booth.
But there's that. But the thing that you could say that Freddy really influenced Edward Scissorhands and Edward Scissorhands.
Tim Burton.
Tim Burton really. Yeah, I just that
just each director, producer, writer has influenced every other director, producer, writers, and you see every little, even a little homage.
Yeah,
it's there. It's a little influence. It'll be there. I don't know. You steal from the best.
You do.
So anything else you want to say about the Nightmare on Elm Street?
Oh, I love it that they ripped apart the pillow and there was all those feathers, and then she woke up and there was a room full of normal pillows, not feathers. And then except for she walks out the door and there's that one feather.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember there's something what white feathers mean. I can't remember what it is now. Well, it will come to me. But it was good to see Roger Rabbit in this.
Yeah, I was telling her the sleep clinic doctor was the guy that did the voice of Roger Rabbit.
Yeah, you did. You said where?
Yeah. Yeah. So that was. Well, I mean, like I said, almost everybody is famous for either being a character actor, which you need in a horror movie and a sci-fi movie. Mm-hmm. And you have
and Dee Baker,
and you have Ronnie Blakely as the mother, who's still a very famous or was a very famous character actor. John Saxon was a very famous character actor and did a lot of martial arts. Whatever was big in the decade. Not that he confirmed where he was from or what his ancestry was. Like a couple other famous actors who are now dead, Joe Don Baker and a couple other people, famous character actors in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
But you have so many. Amanda Weiss is still sort of acting. Johnny Depp is still acting. It's kind of funny how he does so much British voice now and trying to do Willy Wonka, which I didn't enjoy. But it's kind of,
We've adopted Johnny Depp. He's one of our own.
oh, is that right?
Yeah.
So,
And apparently you guys have pushed out John Barrowman, so we get John. You get Johnny Depp, and we take John Barrowman.
We can have John Barrowman.
I mean, of course, 21 Jump Street was remade, and he was in the movie for 2 or 3 minutes in the new version. But I mean, it was so funny how so many people forgot that he was in Nightmare on Elm Street, even though he had a memorable death as well. But I'm trying to think. There was a couple other famous actors in the. You have Patricia Arquette. You have Lawrence Fishburne. But this is the 80s. You have 4 of the actresses from the Nightmare on Elm Street series was in the ABC series, Just the 10 of Us, which was like a weird Facts of Life sitcom family combo. And so 3 of the actresses in that TV show that was a spinoff of Growing Pains were in the Nightmare on Elm Street series as well, including Heather Langenkamp as well. But like I said, I don't know if they'll do any more, but then after Freddy versus Jason, they have the comic book of combining both Freddy, Ash from the Evil Dead series and Jason as well. So I don't know if they're
Jason
ever going to do. Yeah, I don't know if they're ever going to do that as a movie, because Freddy versus Jason took so long to come together, and so many people didn't like the ending of that as well. So I don't know. A lot of the horror movies of the last 10 years, they really haven't had slashers. They haven't had official slashers of the last 10 years that I recall. They've had evil dolls. They've had ones in asylums. They had the Paranormal Activity series, was just partially witch and partially demon. But they didn't have any slashers.
We might be due a rebirth of the slasher movies then.
Maybe I'll have to reinvent it and come up with. Well, wait, I'm slightly off. Child's Play has come back, so that was another slasher killer doll.
Yeah.
So that's come back. They have a TV show now that's very popular. But yeah.
So, shall we go to Final Saint Score then?
Sure.
You need a good look at that.
Yeah.
So go on then, over to you. What's your Final Saint Score?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm a Wes Craven fan also from my mother loving the movies. I don't think she's seen all the Freddy Krueger movies though, so that may not be fair. But she likes the rest of his stuff. Like I said, I saw the first movie in the 90s actually. So I knew that they were making tons of the movies in the 80s when I was a teenager, but I didn't get to see all of them until the 90s. And it's a good series. It's not as gritty as the first, third, and the seventh. It's kind of gritty and more, is it a dream, is it not? Type of thing. He's a good actor, even as a character actor in the original V and Knight Rider. So I want him helping in a way with the Freddy Krueger character. I think he understands it. But if he's 75, I don't know how physically active he can be. And I don't know if they're going to do any more, because I think except for the Child's Play character, I think the slasher and Scream, I think that's the only 2 that have really meshed from the 80s to the 90s to now. I think everything else is kind of, and like I said, I mentioned most of the other series that are big as well. Plus they have the Killer Orphan Girl. That one is big as well.
But don't you think that there's go ahead. Finish your rating.
They're still. Yeah, I mean, actually, I'm slightly wrong, because they're still doing. The new Halloween just came out. So
Yeah.
they're still doing slasher movies. It's just updated and more current. Uh, but they probably need to come up with a brand new character, and I can't think of a brand new character.
So what would you give it out of
But
10?
I mean, yeah, the first movie, except for the ending, I definitely give it an 8, if not higher. But the ending does kind of mess it up because it's sort of jarring. It doesn't really make any sense. After she opens the door, it's okay, but after that, it's kind of.
It is all a dream thing.
Yeah, I mean that's the other thing. In the third movie, they do kind of say, what happened to Nancy and all that. I think the other reason why the Freddy Krueger universe is good is because they actually do have good, relatable characters and likable characters. Where you can't say that about the Friday the 13th series, and Halloween only has like 3 characters in that you really like. Where Jamie Lee Curtis said this year, "I'm done, no more. I'm not doing it anymore." So that was from what, 78. So they've continued the series through remakes and reboots. And what is there, like 10 of them now? So that's getting up high.
That the Halloween franchise gets quite confusing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because the other problem,
So many different timelines.
yeah, it is different. Yeah, I mean, that's the other problem with making a movie is that there's very few movies that you can constantly keep working on the previous one and have it still work and then bring in the audience.
Just don't tell George Lucas that. That's not the way he operates.
Well, he's kind of gone now. He actually did sell it to Disney, so. And that's another sci-fi's a little, except for Alien and a few other.
I still think that George Lucas has the last say on things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he sold it to Disney for billions of dollars.
Yeah.
I think Disney still go to him and say, "Is this okay to do?"
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah,
there is a Bible. There is a continuity reference material, aka a Bible that they've created. And what's interesting is that you with the horror movies is that you can never do that. You can't do that with you can't do that with Lestat. You can't do that with any of the other great vampire stories. There's just everything is too changeable in the horror film.
Well, actually,
because that's kind of one of the things that the directors and writers play with, is that they do that so that you don't have a whole bunch of really firm ground to stand on, because if they move it out of the way, boom, you're scared again.
Well, there is a TV show now with the Interview with the Vampire that I haven't seen. There was a Freddy TV show.
But I'm telling you that because of that, and the other thing that I was going to ask is, are you
There was a Scream TV show.
Okay, all right.
So there was a few. There was the other anthology series like War of the Worlds too, and there was a Poltergeist one that wasn't very good. And then the other 2 movies that we haven't discussed, Poltergeist 2 and 3. But then that's the other problem, because in the Poltergeist it was Spielberg and Tobe Hooper together, and Tobe Hooper is another, wild director who does good work, but he's not as. He was famous for a little while, but he hasn't gone up to the level of Spielberg and Lucas and Craven and.
He won't do now. He's dead.
Yeah, no, but I'm saying that his movies were different. But the thing is, Poltergeist is confusing because not only do they change the timelines in the movies and all that, and the poor girl died in real life, but
So that's
Well,
that's a thing, you know.
right, but
That's what I'm saying is
combination
that
of,
it's easier to write
yeah.
a Bible for something that you're starting from scratch than something that is, you know, that is somewhat based on, you know, the slice of life and somewhat based on the you know, that which makes you tick, the boogeyman and stuff. And so I just think that I think that they really did a good job in Nightmare on Elm Street. I was surprised that I enjoyed this watching as much as I did.
Wow.
I think I will give this a 10 out of 10. I'll give this 10 out of 10 beds eating Johnny Depp. I think that's something Amber Heard would have wanted a lot of. And so I brought her into the subject. So, you know, I'm covering
Wow,
all the bases.
That's another universe.
And that's
the
another
Pirate of the
universe.
Caribbean
And is it a fake universe too? You never know.
So,
So
No,
I really
but,
think
yeah.
that it was a good thing that we reviewed it.
So let me ask you this, Lee. Which ones of the Nightmare on Elm Street universe did you like the TV show? Did you like the movies? Do you think they should do it again, or do you think they should just leave it alone?
I think they should just leave it. For me, I want what I remember about the TV shows. I could. There was too many anthologies out there, TV shows at the time.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it was kind of a resurgence of the '70s TV shows, but with more cable tricks.
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
and
That
commercials.
there
and
was that
stuff.
Hunger one too.
Yeah.
The Hunger. Yeah, go on.
Well, yeah, but you're going into vampires and stuff.
Yeah, I would say just leave it as it is. You've got that many movies in this franchise. Just enjoy for what they made.
So did you didn't enjoy 3 or 4, or did you like 3 and 4 with the Dream Warrior family kind of thing?
I preferred the first two.
Did you see number 7?
I've got them all.
No, you don't. Does that have Freddy versus Jason as well?
No, I've got on another one, but this is all all the movies.
All 8 of them or whatever.
Yeah, dropping them.
Yep. Got a lot of movies there.
So I'm going to give this because I think it's such a great character that they created, and Robert England played him so well, and for all the threat and the terror in a dream to bring to life on screen, it's amazing. So I'm going to give it 9, 10. Never Sleep Again.
Yeah.
Well, that's what my score is.
All right. Guess he didn't make up his mind, but that's okay.
And I'm not changing my mind on that.
I guess not.
So,
well, fellow watchers, don't go to sleep. You may end up dreaming about Alex or Lee or myself, and what a nightmare that would be.
So do you think they messed up? Do you think they messed up the series with Freddy versus Jason?
it was just a fun movie, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's just,
because they were debating about making that a movie for like 10 years and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get Jason X.
Yeah.
Ooh, dear. Well, that
Jason in space.
Yeah.
That's like what's it called in space? Batman and Robin in space, or all those funny movies. Oh my God.
Well, yeah, it wasn't the first movie to do that because Hellraiser.
Oh
yeah.
Fast and Furious 9.
Or was it 10?
Or was it 10 and they go to space and they duct tape a car.
Duct tape that gives you enough oxygen. What was it again? What did we just say? God, I'm trying to remember something. Yeah, I mean that's the other, question as well, is that you know, horror and sci-fi and superheroes, it's all kind of blending in together, and these movies seem to go on for, decades and decades and
But what
decades.
really fucked up horror movies was Saw, because I mean that was just
Yeah, so
this is just get your gore on. Let's just get your gore on. That's all we gotta do is just get your gore on.
Yeah, that was,
And see how bad we can make you feel about these people.
that's not a horror movie. That's just a shock.
That's just getting your gore on.
well, I mean, was it? What do you think, Lee? Was that like the American version of the video nasties they were trying to bring it into the modern age? And it's like, yeah, it didn't quite work. It didn't quite work.
Video nasties. Oh, those were the days.
No, but
That's
you
what.
had,
That's
what was it?
our videos. What we put on the channel.
No, they have an American Twitch channel called Double Toasted. It's mostly African American, and they loved Extra. They love that movie.
Oh, Extra. Actually, Extra is a good movie.
Yeah, they loved it. They loved how gross it was, and all that. As a matter of fact, it almost hurt his family, like his mother. That scene where the woman gives birth to the full grown man, and the rest of the family walked in. They were like, "What the bleep?" they were like, super shocked.
I remember.
Oh,
I think I watched Extra when I was about 12.
yeah.
I've
So
never been the same since.
yeah, so that was kind of an interesting movie though, and it was
Oh my
gross
gosh.
in a way too, and it was body horror, but it wasn't. Then they talked about, what was it, Life Force or whatever, the one with Patrick Stewart having a small, role, where now he's known as, British guy, serious guy, Picard guy, and he was in the original Dune and all that, which they've also remade.
And
again.
Excalibur. He was in
And
Excalibur.
yeah.
Everybody was in Excalibur.
And then
Excalibur
there's-
was the cast of
And
thousands.
then it's so weird when you see him in a few movies where he
Okay,
actually
but
has hair.
let's let Lee finish up this podcast so that we can so that we don't get completely sidetracked. Oh my god, we were going so far afield.
Can I just say? Can I just say to it, Susan? It's pointless. What I tried to say earlier. It's pointless to say to the viewers, "Don't fall asleep" at the end of the cast. You should have said it at the beginning. Because now they're all fully, they're zedding away.
There's zonked.
But I'd like to thank you two there,
Thank you.
for sitting down and talking Elm Street and going off into the multiverse of Alfred Hitchcock and coming back again. But yeah, a great cast. So please, you guys out there, if you've seen the original Nightmare on Elm Street with the amazing Robert Englund, please leave a message below. Let us know what you thought of the movie. Leave a message below if you'd like to join us as well. You've got to be 18 plus, of course, because Susan's just got a potty mouth.
Sorry about that. Fucking really sorry about that.
Yeah, 18 plus, but you need a tablet, a laptop, a PC, or a mobile phone with a working camera and microphone to be on these casts. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Insta, and YouTube. And of course, the final thing about YouTube is, if you subscribe to us, please press the bell notification button. Well, I was waiting for a ding then. Nah, your ding is gone. Your ding is gone.
What happened?
I guess it broke a little bit.
Do you know what you need? You need one of those old car horns.
Yeah.
Yeah, so press that and you'll get notified every time we put the video. So that is our little review of A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, it fell apart.
Oh, that's it. Just like my life, falling apart. So until next time, guys, please be safe. Don't have nightmares. Have sweet dreams. Bye for now.
Bye.
Yeah.